Hello, this is Ronnie coming to you today, Heart Pickers, and I'm coming to you with a viewer question. And basically, they were talking about what are some of the mistakes that we have made that have slowed down our business. And I came up with four that I thought of and I've talked about in the past. But I know there's some new people to our channel. Some people are been around. Maybe you missed it. So these are just some things that have happened to us, poor judgments, bad ideas, just things that have happened. We'll talk about it and try to make it somewhat quick. And you can also go back into our videos and also see, because I'm very open about these things and we talk about it. That way, other people can learn from our mistakes and not fall down into the same pitfalls. We all going to make mistakes. I mean, let's face it. I mean, it's going to happen. Um, you know, I just made the mistake the other day of sending a sign to somebody by mistake, a sign I sold for $1,700. It wasn't a big sign; it was 18 by 12, but I sent it to the wrong address. And luckily, the person got it, contacted me, actually called me, and said, "Hey, you sent me this item, but I think you sent it to me by accident." And had it sent back to me. Then I had to send it to them, their correct address, and it cost me $120 because I had to have it overnighted because they were leaving town and needed it. Actually, leaving the country. So, $120 mistake, but still made good money. But that's not a mistake. That's just something that happened recently. Mistakes happen every day. It's just how you deal with them and move on. But anyway, probably one of the biggest mistakes we have had, and I've talked about this, you can go back and if you want to see videos of it, we have plenty of videos on our warehouse. And back a few years ago, my wife, we were looking at getting an office space or warehouse space. And for whatever reason, I was like in love with having a warehouse. Not sure why a warehouse. We live in the Northeast. Yeah, and warehouses tend to be cold. This had an office space and a warehouse space, but it was not a good fit for us. We had a better fit of a space. It was actually cheaper by $250 a month. It was a smaller space, and it was upstairs. It was an office space, like 2 rooms, 500 square feet or 600 square feet. Had a bathroom. Would have worked very well. Small kitchen would have worked very well for what we do. But you're always thinking ahead outside, like, well, we need more space. What about when we do this and this and this? We don't want to move later on down the road, blah, blah, blah. I probably should have just took what I had at that moment. Instead, my wife went to England for, I don't know what it was, like 10 days to see her best friend with another friend. And I decided that, hey, looking online, I seen a warehouse. Knew you had to jump on it. It's close to the house. I jumped on it. I got it. My wife actually cut her trip short, like 3 days, and scurried here to come and see it. That's when you know there's a problem. When my wife starts, I tend to make decisions without talking to my wife sometimes. Buying a car, doing certain things. I've done this before. Yeah. Whenever I don't decide to talk to the wife, I make mistakes. But anyway, we had the warehouse for about a year and a half. Issues, it didn't have a bathroom in the unit. It was about 1,000 square feet, 300 feet of office space, 800 feet maybe of, I think it was 1,100, 800 square feet of like just regular warehouse space, Had a heater, but it wasn't really insulated. It was cold, even with the heater on. It was cold in the office all the time. It was like an ice box in the winter. Summertime, it was hot. So you had this, it was just terrible trying to get things. We did grow as a business. I mean, there was some months where between eBay and Amazon and Craigslist, we did well over $20,000. We had our best months on eBay in there doing over 14,000. But it was very, it comes at a cost too. It's probably 1,100 or so with everything all inclusive when you come into power, internet. So there's a cost to come to it, you know. But it was kind of the wrong location. Then it came to a thing where he wanted to move on from it. He offered it to us. I think it was like $250,000 or so, somewhere over 200, between 200 and $250,000. It was that unit and the unit next to it. So it would have been about 2,200 square feet. The other unit was just fully warehouse space. And we just decided it wasn't worth our time to buy that space. Just wouldn't work for us. It leaked when it rained. It leaked when it had heavy snow. It was cold. We would have probably sank another God knows how much money into it. I had this thing of putting a hole in the wall and knocking it out and having this bigger space, and it would have not worked because we didn't need a warehouse space. We needed more office space for what we sell. I had this big picture of, selling bigger items and all this stuff, and never really got into it all that much. So it was a terrible idea for the whole thing of that year and a half. He wind up selling it. It was cold. It was terrible. No bathroom. I mean, you had to go to the bathroom down at the auto mechanic place. They had a bathroom that was like connected to the building, but it was also shared with them. It always looked, I mean, it was nice to go number one, but if you wanted to go number two, had to scurry home. And my wife would not use it at all, to the point where we got one of those like little camp stoves. I mean, camping toilets. Terrible idea on my part, but it slowed down business because now you're moving back to the house with inventory. We cut our inventory in half, got rid of so much stuff. It was probably a good thing because there was a lot of things that we were not selling at the time, and it was just kind of like, hey, we have the space, we'll list it forever and it'll sell what it sells. Kind of like scavenger life freaking mentality. And when you're limited on space, we moved back to the condo, 900 square feet, using a spare bedroom to store stuff, to take photographs. Yeah, you're lacking space big time. So it kind of hurt a little bit initially. We're better off now because it actually helped us buy and pick up better stuff. But it always becomes because see boxes right here, I have to put these boxes away. These are actually how I store suits after I list them. I inventory them. You see there's numbers on them, and I put them away on shelving. And that's how I keep track of where everything is. But actually, the year after the second year, we did a little bit less in sales, but we actually made more money because we didn't have the warehouse space and all that expense, believe it or not. Number two, there was 4 things. Number 2 was probably our first year. We got into a big thing where we both went full time at the same time. I told my wife, like, I quit my job. I got in a big argument with my boss about going on a vacation. We had a vacation planned. It was, it was already set. So it was for about 4 or 5 weeks, and it was fine. And I was going to get paid for 4 weeks of those, 1 week not. But I was cool with that. Like, no good. We saved, had plenty of money in the bank, probably somewhere between $15,000 and $18,000. I forget exactly. So, it's like no big deal. What happened was I quit. I became, I'm forget this. I'm doing this full time. My wife said, you know what? Can I do it full time with you? And I'm like, hell yeah, do it full time. You're not happy being the assistant manager at the party store? Come on, do it full time too. Went from doing probably, I don't know what I was making. Probably we were making somewhere between $80,000 and $100,000 a year, to all of a sudden going into And plus, you're getting that added business from eBay and Amazon. Also, now you're doing this. You take that 5-week vacation. You're not selling nothing because your eBay store is not on. You can't tell people like, "Hey, I'm gonna ship you a shirt in 5 weeks." People like, yeah, whatever, pal. Like that doesn't work. You could do it for 2 weeks. We've done it multiple times for 2 weeks. You're good. But I didn't think about it at that time. Ran through a boatload of money because you're on vacation. Go here, go there. We went to the Dominican Republic. We're in Orlando. You just shell through money like no tomorrow. And then when you start to, okay, we got to buy stuff, we got to build the business and inventory and all this stuff, ran into money issues. So at the point where I had an American Express card, to where you start buying stuff on a credit card. I don't really have too many credit cards. I think I have two and she has one, and that's it. Like no credit card. I don't believe in the credit debt thing, buying stuff like that, points and all that. I don't do that because I don't have the discipline for that. So we're using American Express because you have to pay it back every month. So we did eventually build the business back, but we did run into a money problem, I don't know what you want to call it, cash flow problem, discipline problem, because our expenses were high. Brand new car, house payments, all this stuff that we have. And I'm not one person to cut it lean and just like I'm working full time for myself to enjoy life. I don't want to also cut my internet, and I'm not going to have this. I'm going to drive around some 20-year-old car. Like I've had the cars. If you know me for long enough, I had two cars before that. Both had engines blow up in them. I wanted something newer. I couldn't, the Camry couldn't drive in snow, so I had to get a 4x4. That could be another mistake too, my truck. But anyway, I wasn't going to cut my spending because I became a reseller. I should have maybe early on, maybe a little bit cut my spending, but I chose not to. Still did vacations, still did this, still did that. It took a little while, but we overcame it, expanded the business, but there was some rough patches early on from where you're getting money in. You can't really spend it because you're paying bills instead of going out back and spending that money. So discipline of money or cash flow, whatever you want to call it, hey, is what it is. But that's a problem a lot of full-time resellers do run into time and time again. It's why I do set some money set aside if you do become full-time. You don't have to, but it's good to have some. Number 3 was right around the same time we became full-time. I got kicked off Amazon. There was really 2 reasons to why I got kicked off Amazon. Biggest reason, I didn't follow Amazon rules. I just did merchant fulfilled. I didn't do FBA. I did a little bit into FBA, but I was really just doing merchant fulfilled for the most part. And I didn't follow the rules. Like there was I went by somebody else's words that I was talking to. And that's the problem. A lot of people will talk to somebody that they think is more knowledgeable than them, that's been selling on a platform, and be like, hey, I heard this thing. Do I need to or not? And it was just about, I would sell used electronics and appliances and a lot of new stuff too, like video games, some used, some new, board games, puzzles, easy to find stuff at thrift stores, yard sales, estate sales, that kind of thing. At that time, we didn't really do the arbitrage, going to Walmarts and stuff like that. We did that for a while when we had the warehouse, and up and down, depending on what you found. We had some great months because fell into a bunch of these little radio thingies, got them for like $3, and as soon as hurricane season came, these little weather radios or whatever you want to call them, I forgot what they were, but man, those things were selling for like $25, and we bought them for like $2. But I bought like 150 of them. I bought a lot of mistakes in real arbitrage because I'd be the person that would buy like everything. Oh, there's 150 of them. Nobody else is gonna get them. I'm buying them all. Going around and buying these cordless Craftsman chainsaw things and waiting to a hurricane to sell some. We did the same thing with a bunch of what do you call it? Flea and tick medicine for dogs. Dropped like $2,000 buying a bunch. They did sell, and we made a bunch of money after getting over the hazmat um, restriction, which was a pain in the ass. But hey, we did get over it. And for a while, we were the only person on that listing, which was really good, and we were selling a bunch. But even those, they were for bigger dogs, and what a pain in the ass that was too. Not realizing like, oh, they seem to be selling pretty good. The small dogs, not the larger dogs. But anyway, back to the other question, the whole Amazon thing. We got kicked off Amazon. So that was a nice little flow of money coming in, a few $1,000s every month. We didn't have that anymore. So we just had to really focus and hustle on eBay. And it was a pain in the butt. Like when you're just focusing and now you can't pick up a lot of stuff you were picking up in stores, it becomes a whole different struggle. I tried Etsy. I didn't really like that. I mean, who didn't try Bonanza? Hey, link your shit to Bonanza. Like, fuck Bonanza. I mean, there was no other sites. Posh wasn't around then. I tried Posh. I actually sold something today at Poshmark. I sold actually like 3 things this year so far, which is crazy because I haven't listed anything over there in months. Maybe I should start to again, right? But it's actually, just having other sites is somewhat good, even though I'm a kind of 2-site person. I don't like, but getting kicked off is a big thing. Anyway, back to the point. I think I totally like went sideways here. Listen to somebody else. Sometimes look up the information on yourself. They told us we were selling a lot of electronics and stuff like that, but we would sell. Let's say we found a VCR or a DV. What do they call these things? TV converter boxes were real popular back 5-6 years ago. They're not as popular now because I think most people don't have the analog TVs anymore. Analog, yeah, something like that, to get the signal anymore. These things were given out like candy, back in like 2009, 2010, whenever it was when they switched over. But anyway, I would sell those without the remote. I'd sell the DVD things without the remote, without the cables. Come to find out that you needed the cables. You should have had the cords. You should have had the manual if it came with a manual. Whatever it came with, you should be selling it with the item. And I went by a few other people going, oh, it's not needed. I sell it all the time, not needed. Like, oh, no, you don't need it. Trust me, blah, blah, blah. I took their word for it, and they were still selling it. I got kicked off. Like, bye. I get kicked off of that. And there was also another factor that kind of got me kicked off. I had an issue with a customer. They bought this Final Cut software. It was for Apple. It was out of date. It was a few older thing. It was brand new. I found it at a thrift store. And one of those things where I should have just probably sold it on eBay. You see, the new one was selling for like, I don't know, north of 500. This is selling for like 300 to 400 on eBay. On Amazon, excuse me. And eBay, it's selling for like 100. And I'm like, I'm going to sell it on eBay. Amazon, like, hell yeah. So somebody bought it. They told me they returned it to me, returned the sender. They opened up one of these A to Z claims or A to C claims. I forgot what it was. I've never had one of these opened again. I had more than one open, but they all had to do with this situation. So I had one open. I wind up winning it because she could not prove that it was returned to me. They kept on saying that they just returned the sender, which I never received the item. No idea what happened. She went to the University of St. Louis. That's all I remember. She was trying to do something. She needed this software, blah, blah, blah. She said it was out of date, didn't want to use it. She wanted the new software, whatever. But I didn't get it, so I refused to refund somebody. It's quite a few dollars, And all of a sudden, like a few days later, I had a few things sold. I shipped them out. Like I don't pay attention to where it's going, this and that. And all of a sudden, I get a claim before the item is actually delivered. They open a claim, and I'm like, of course, you check the tracking, and it's like it's not even delivered. It was delivered the next day. So I kind of thought something was a little funny about it. Then I see another issue that's opened up the next day. And then I check like the addresses of these things. They're all in the same area or in or around St. Louis. So this lady, or I don't know if it was a lady or a guy now, but man, they wanted to take down my account any way possible. And eventually between the one issue and the other issue, Amazon was like, "Nah, fuck you. See ya. Bye." And it took a few years to get back on there. Like I talked to a bunch of different people. I remember talking to Chris Green. He told me to do this, didn't work. I talked to this person, they came up with something that didn't work. Like it was like, oh man, and it was just talking to another reseller that got kicked off of eBay, kicked off of Amazon. They got kicked off, and through the forums, people were telling them like, "Hey, this is a letter that got me approved. Just change your put your name in there and blah blah blah." And it worked for them, so they said, "Hey, just try it." And I tried. Like I would try every like 6 months. I would ask for a request, and they would send me the request to try again. And all of a sudden, it's like you've been approved. You can now sell again. I was like, so it was very good to have it reopened, and I've been selling over there. I run hot and cold with Amazon. Just depends on what I'm doing. Summertime I kind of ramp up a little bit more into the fourth quarter, and then I kind of slow down the first of the year. I don't really do much and send stuff over there. I do some merchant fulfill, but most of it is FBA, kind of hoard stuff, and then send over a box. Hoard stuff, send over a box, and I kind of really keep it simple to where stuff is like in the top 1% or something, or I don't send it. It has to sell almost when it hits the warehouse, or I don't want it. So that was it. So I mean, getting kicked off of a platform that made you money kind of sucked. And number 4 was something we just talked about probably a month or two ago. Was being a below standard seller on eBay for a year was very stressful. It was something that wasn't supposed to happen. It was eBay's issue with these. We had a bunch of claims that were open for items not being received within like a time. And it was when eBay did this thing with a business practices. And of course, we were in this thing and we set it all up. But they had a lot of glitches. Like eBay, this is why I don't do anything. When eBay puts something out the first time and they say, "Hey, jump in," I put the brakes on now, because there's so many glitches with anything eBay does right away. It never makes any sense because things happen. And the thing was, you fall below standard because a bunch of people opened up, because I was on vacation for 2 weeks over Thanksgiving. And we went to Orlando and we sold a bunch of things. But for whatever reason, 4 people were able to open cases for items not received. And I'm on vacation. How are you going to receive the item? Even though we send messages to these people, they know the item's not coming to me. I don't understand why these people would even open something, or why. And then we call eBay because the cases were opened and like automatically closed in their favor, like within 5 minutes. It was very weird. 3 happened in one day alone. So it was very weird. So when I get back, I call eBay. I talk to eBay about it, and I'm like, "Hey, what happened here? Like, what happened?" They said, "Oh, it was a glitch. We'll fix this. We can't, call us back in a few days. You don't see an issue resolved." And time went by. I noticed all of a sudden you get like that thing. I'm like a month later, it's like, "Hey, you're still below standard." And I'm like, "Huh." I call them again. "Hey, you never fixed this." And then, they do their typical thing like, "Oh, we don't have any notes on this from the first time," so you explain the whole situation again. You go into it, some time passes, doesn't get fixed, you call them again, and it just becomes this whole thing where you calling them, calling them, calling them, calling them. Till all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, that happened over 90 days ago. We can't really do anything for you." And you're like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "Oh, you should have contacted us earlier." And I'm like, "I did." And they're like, "We don't have any record of it." And I'm like, "Really? Really?" I should have been more on top of it. I should have probably just called them every single freaking day or figured out something. Maybe I should have went through the Facebook page. I Sometimes you have better luck going through the Facebook business page. Who knows? I mean, sometimes it's such a pain in the ass. But I did not keep up on my end of the business, and because you're selling on a different platform, it's not your platform. You're just borrowing somebody else's platform to sell on. You got to go by their rules, and you know, sometimes you hit hiccups, and that's it is. But I mean, in the end of the day, it made us better because I figured out that there was a lot of things that I stay away from now because it wasn't selling that good, or there's too much competition in it that it doesn't make any sense to pick it up because it's way too long. And that's what it comes down to. Just boils down to just I'm done. With I got to be more on top of my business. So I mean, those are the things, and you learn and you make mistakes, but you still keep going, and things will work out. Don't give up. Just keep going. We'll see you guys later. Have a good day. But man, we all make mistakes. Just keep that in mind. See you guys later. Have a good day.